Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Ron Chin. I graduated from the College of Arts and Sciences in 1997. I'm here today in my capacity as a member of the College of Arts and Sciences Dean's Advisory Board, and I want to welcome you today to today's Arts and Sciences Alumni Academy. The College of Arts and Sciences offers these insightful and interactive virtual talks as a way of letting alumni know of the great research and scholarship happening in the College's Arts and Sciences. Today, we are pleased to present the Great American Solar Eclipse for a look behind the eclipse that will leave portions of the United States, including Syracuse, in totality. Today's talk is an example of the interconnectedness of the College of Arts and Sciences and how it is so uniquely positioned to appreciate this incredible event through the perspectives and disciplines which include sciences and math. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty excited to hear more about this momentous celestial event. But before we begin, we have a few housekeeping items to share. First, we ask everyone to mute their microphones. This will ensure everyone can hear our presenter. We are recording this event. It will be shared on the college's website for people to view after this evening. If you do not prefer to have your image recorded, please turn off your camera. Closed captioning services are provided for this event. At this time, please direct your attention to the chat for additional instructions for closed captions and a few additional informational items. Right now, I would like to introduce our speakers for this afternoon. Denver Whittington is an assistant professor in the Department of Physics. He's a particle physicist specializing in design, construction, and operation of neutrino detectors and analysis of neutrino interaction data. Jada Garofalo is a junior physics and neuroscience major. Julia Fancher is a sophomore physics and applied mathematics major. And Nico O'Neill is a junior physics and computer science major. I know we're all excited to get to today's presentation. So with that, I'll turn this over to today's speakers.
Hello, everyone. I'm Nico, and this is our presentation. We are currently in Holden Observatory, which is where we're streaming from on campus. On April 8th, there's going to be a total solar eclipse in the United States, and we are very lucky that Syracuse is going to be on the path of totality. In simple words, what a solar eclipse is that we are going to be able to see the moon completely cover the sun. Due to its orbit and just the size of the moon, we are lucky enough to be able to see it completely cover the sun, and we'll only be able to see light from the outside of the sun. This picture right here is from a solar eclipse that was in 2017 that was also in the United States, but did not pass through New York State. The path of totality is going to be passing from Texas to Maine. So for all of you guys in different locations, I'm going to also have a map so you can see if you're on this path of totality. Around 31 million people live within this path of totality, which is a high number. Usually there's a lot less just due to it passing through the ocean and other places like that. And we will be able to see this eclipse for around 4 minutes, meaning that totality is around 4 minutes. While totality is that short, the actual event of the eclipse is much longer. There's other phases. As you can see in this image in the top, it kind of shows the progression that the moon is going to take covering the sun during the day of the eclipse. And this picture below at the bottom just shows what the other phases are going to look like. Here is the map of the eclipse. So you can see this white stripe that goes across is the path of totality and the estimated times that you'll be able to see it from those various locations. And if you aren't on the path of totality, you'll still be able to see the eclipse just at a lower percentage. So you can see these lines that go across show if you're like at 90% totality or 80% totality. And what that just means is that the moon is never going to completely cover the sun in your location. You'll still be able to see parts of the sun peeking through from behind the moon. So as for viewing the eclipse, there's a lot of safety information that you should know. The first and most important thing is you cannot view the eclipse with your bare eyes. You cannot take a picture with your camera without a filter on, and you cannot look at the sun through a telescope without, again, a filter. Eclipse glasses are the easiest ways to view the eclipse. This is what they look like. And Syracuse, if you do come to the university or if you live around here, we will be providing these at the university for free. You can also get them at other locations. Apparently Warby Parker is giving them out for free if there's a location near you, and you can also buy them online, or I think grocery stores are selling them too. The important thing, if you do pick up these glasses, is to check the ISO rating. It's just a safety rating to make sure it's blocking the correct amount of sunlight. And that rating is ISO 12312-2. They should be printed somewhere on the glasses, which you can see right here, what that would look like. So the way that these glasses work is they block most of the light from the sun, but you'll be able to see the actual shape of the eclipse here. We'll do a quick demo of what that looks like. So this is what it looks like when you're viewing through the eclipse glasses. Can't really see anything, but if there's a strong light, like a flashlight right here or the sun, you can see the shape of what that looks like. Awesome. Another way that you can view it without getting these glasses is through a pinhole projector, which you can build very easily at home. We actually have one here that I just built out of an old box. And pinhole projectors are very rudimentary cameras, so they reflect the image of the eclipse onto the ground, or in this case, into the box here. So I will do a very quick explanation of this. So here is how what the box looks like. On the inside, you will tape a piece of paper on the back wall just to view the image a little bit better. And then you'll want to cut 2 holes in the front, one of which you're going to leave empty for viewing purposes, and the other you cover with a piece of aluminum foil, and you poke a very tiny hole, if you can see here, just like with a needle or something like that. Yeah, it's kind of hard to see the hole because it's very tiny. But the way that this works, let me just grab my flashlight really quick, is, and your box will be closed. I just have mine open for demonstration purposes, but you will look through this viewing area like this here, and with a flashlight pointed, you should be able to see the light from the flashlight come through, just like that. So on the day of the eclipse, if you look through here and this area is pointed at the sun, you'll be able to see the shape of the eclipse. By that, when the eclipse or when the moon is not fully covering the sun and it's only at a partial totality, you'll be able to see a kind of crescent shape on the inside.
Hi everybody, my name is Julia. I will be going over a history of eclipses. So the first recorded eclipse we have is in County Meath, Ireland, back in 3340 BCE. And we also see examples of this in China in 2134 BCE, and in a city called Ugarit, which is now Syria, in 1223 BCE. So we know that these cultures saw eclipses, but we're not always sure that they knew exactly what they were. A lot of cultures thought that eclipses were divine or mythological in nature, and most of them thought that eclipses were bad omens from their gods. In a lot of cultures, it was believed that the sun was eaten, although what it was eaten by varies greatly. So it can be anything from a dragon to a snake or a dog, and sometimes even a panther. So in these cultures, it's well documented that when eclipses happened, people would go out into the street and create a whole bunch of noise to scare away whatever was eating the sun. And clearly it worked because we got the sun back, so they kept doing it. And especially in the Western world, so in ancient Greece, it was thought that the gods were angry whenever eclipses occurred, and that they were basically running away with the sun. And so there's examples of a battle between Lydians and the Medes, who they were in the middle of a battle when an eclipse occurred, and because they took it as such a bad omen, they stopped, drafted a truce, and had a peace treaty because of this eclipse. And in ancient Egypt, it was thought that the sun god Ra was the most powerful god. So we never actually see any record of eclipses in ancient Egypt, because it was thought that writing down any mention of an eclipse would bring down the wrath of the sun god. So instead, we just see a whole lot of mentions of blindness or darkness around the time that we know eclipses happened, but we never actually see any direct mention of them. But we do know, or we at least think, that these eclipses were very impactful in Egyptian culture, especially because around the time of King Tut, the capital city of Egypt was going to be moved. And so they were in the process of doing this when we know an eclipse occurred, and all of a sudden they moved back. So we don't have any direct mention of this eclipse for aforementioned reasons. We think that this eclipse probably had a big part of the reason that they moved the capital city back to where it was. However, in complete opposite direction, the Chinese records are the most complete. They had a very detailed record of when eclipses occurred and for how long they occurred. And we know that they were able to predict when eclipses happened because when royal astronomers in the late 2000 BCs failed to predict an eclipse, they were beheaded. which is really unfortunate for them, but kind of cool for us because it means that we know that they could do that. And they weren't the only ancient culture that could. We think that the Maya, the Aztec, and the Babylonians could also predict eclipses, or at least the timing of the eclipse. And so these cultures tended to not view eclipses as such bad omens. They still tended to think that they were divine in some way, but they understood it a lot better, and so they weren't as afraid of these eclipses. However, it wasn't until 1715 that Edmund Halley was able to correctly predict an eclipse to within 4 minutes and 20 miles. So Edmund Halley is the same person who Halley's Comet is named after. He was very good at predicting the orbits of using Newtonian mechanics to predict orbits of things. So he was able to use the orbit of the moon around the Earth and the Earth around the sun to predict when this would happen, and he was able to do this very accurately. So this is the first time that the date and location of an eclipse are accurately predicted, and so now we can use eclipses for scientific purposes. You can essentially hunt them down. So the most famous example of using an eclipse for scientific purposes is Albert Einstein and Arthur Eddington. So I'm sure you all know Einstein and his theory of relativity. He published this in 1915, which was in the middle of World War I. So during World War I, both sides kind of painted the other as not good enough. So anything that the German scientists published was during the World War I, was discounted by English scientists as not good enough. And so when Einstein publishes relativity, it's looked down upon. And in Germany, because Einstein is Jewish, it's also looked down upon. So no one really pays attention to this paper. However, Arthur Eddington, who is in England at Cambridge Observatory, is a Quaker. And so therefore, he's a pacifist and has a religious exemption from the war. And somehow he gets a hold of Einstein's paper and basically teaches himself this entire paper on relativity. So he's the only person in England and potentially the only person away from Einstein who even knows this. So it's basically due to him that we know about relativity beyond Germany. So Eddington spreads awareness, and with the help of the royal astronomer in England, Frank Dyson, he arranges an expedition to go look at the 1919 eclipse to test relativity. So relativity, for anyone who hasn't heard in great detail, says basically that space and time are one thing. So space-time, and that a big enough mass can bend space-time. And so anything that comes near is going to get bent, including light. So Newtonian mechanics does predict that light should bend around a big mass, but relativity says that it should bend almost twice as much. So this is a direct test of relativity. The issue is we don't have anything big enough on Earth to test this. So we need to look beyond Earth. And the closest thing that we have that's big enough to bend light is the sun. The issue there is that the sun is also producing its own light. So any light that it's bending is getting drowned out by the sun's light. So this is why I want to do the eclipse, because now we have the sun, it's in the way, it's going to be bending the light, but the light from the sun is getting blocked off. And so what the eclipse editions did in 1919, and what we still do today, is we look at the stars and where they appear to be during an eclipse, and then we compare them to previous records, so we know where the stars actually are. And from that, we can compare how much the light has been bent, and we can figure out if this supports relativity or Newtonian mechanics. So parties were sent to an island off the coast of Africa and to Sobral, Brazil. And this right here, this picture is a picture from that eclipse. The horizontal lines represent the stars that were compared to previous ones. And it was shown that the bending of light supported relativity over Newton. So this is a huge success, both politically, because it's the first time after the war that English scientists are openly supporting German scientists, and it's also a huge scientific success. This is completely changing our fundamental understanding of the universe, and it's really important even today. This also makes Einstein incredibly famous. It makes him into the Einstein that we all know. So what do we use? What are our current scientific goals for eclipses? We still check relativity, actually. Even though we saw even back then that relativity was supported, we still want to check and see if there's any minor discrepancies. So we still use eclipses for the same purpose. We also today really focus on the corona of the sun. So the corona is the outer layer of the sun, which if you'll notice is exactly what you see in totality. And so if we can know more about the corona, we can understand more about sunspots and solar winds, which can really affect our satellites in our everyday lives. So eclipses still have a lot of potential to impact our daily life.
Let's roll. Hey y'all, my name is Jada. I'll be taking you through the rest of the slides here. So moving on to the Great American Eclipse of 2024. This is the eclipse in which totality can be seen in both New York State and particularly in Syracuse, where we're recording. Eclipses are periodic, so this isn't the first or the last time they'll be coming to Syracuse. Total solar eclipses occur on average every 18 months across the globe, but they vary in location. And so the next New York State eclipse that will exhibit totality is May 1st, 2079. So it's not for a long ways out quite yet. And here we can actually see a mapping of the April 8th eclipse. Along the dark blue is going to be the path of totality. And so we can see it cut up through the US and right through New York State. And in this light blue, you can see where the partial eclipse will be visible. So you won't be able to see totality, and you won't be able to take your glasses off at any point, but you'll still be able to see parts of the eclipse with your glasses on the entire time. Moving on, here is the eclipse path for May 1st, 2079, where we'll see, it looks more like the path of totality is clipping the side of the Earth, and we're actually starting in New York State and going up. And so it'll be a lot shorter of a path of totality. And this actually isn't a rare phenomenon. This is something that we can predict. And so here we see plots of multiple eclipses, and closer to the poles, we see these more clipping patterns right along Antarctica and North Pole. Whereas once you get closer to the middle of the Earth, we see these long trails. And on April 8th, we'll actually be seeing one of these long trails. Whereas in 2079 in New York State, we'd be seeing one of these clippings. Moving on. Eclipses also occur on other planets. Here are some actual photos of these. The one on the left is from a Mars rover looking up at the sun, and Phobos, which is one of Mars's moons, is partially blocking the sun. On the right here, we see Io, or one of Jupiter's moons, casting a shadow across the planet. And one thing to note here is in both of these images, you'll see that the shadow is never fully covering Jupiter, and the moon isn't fully covering the sun in the picture taken from Mars. And this is reflective of the unique property of the sun, the Earth, and the moon's positioning, in which the moon can fully cover the photosphere of the sun. Moving on, when this occurs, we call this totality. And so here we'll see a diagram where the moon is completely covering the brightest part of the sun's atmosphere called the photosphere, giving us all sorts of cool little attributes to look at. And so the main thing to note will be the inner corona, as it's labeled here, or the faint halo that is going to be surrounding the moon. Below that is the chromosphere, which is the colorful layer of the sun's atmosphere. We also have the potential to see these solar prominences, which are actually shoots of plasma coming off of the sun's atmosphere and back down into it. And so you can see these as little blips of light. Other little blips of light will be these Bailey's beads, which are caused by the sun, or the sun's light from the photosphere passing through craters on the moon and becoming visible even during totality. Moving on, here there's a free software / website called Stellarium. And we've actually simulated what the solar eclipse is going to look like part of the day in Syracuse. And so here we see it's a military time, but at 3 p.m., we see the moon starting to cover up the sun. This is something that's going to be occurring over hours, but here we're skipping to the interesting part. And so here we see the moon starting to cover the sun. And now the moon's mostly covering the sun. It's still a bit covered, so you don't want to take off the glasses quite yet because you still damage your eyes if you're looking at that photosphere. But if we wait until 3:23 p.m., we will see the moon completely cover the photosphere. In this simulation, you can even see a representation of that corona shining around the moon. And then afterwards, we will keep moving forward, and slowly the sun will become more and more visible as the day goes on. And I believe that is it with the slides, and we can move on to Q&A if we're ready.
Well, great, guys. Thank you so much. That was a fascinating presentation. And maybe before we go into questions, I'm going to ask Liz to put some information into the chat. I'd like to invite anyone that's in the Syracuse area to on-campus activities that are happening that day. I know there's a number of things happening on campus. Liz is dropping that information into the chat. And for those of us like me who are not on campus, Arts and Sciences has put together some additional information about the eclipse to help you continue to celebrate. The website Liz is sharing now has a short video with more information about the eclipse, as well as articles about a multitude of eclipse topics. With that, I'd like to now open the event for questions. Since there are a large number of you, either raise your hand or, if possible, if you can enter your question into the chat box, and I'll do my best to read it to the presenter. But maybe we'll start off with the short first one. You know, we heard that it mentioned that the total phase of the eclipse lasts for only about 4 minutes. Does total coverage ever last longer than that? Seems pretty short for such a large event like a solar eclipse like this.
It does depend slightly on location, how long the eclipse is going to last. But it is never really longer than that just because of the speed of the moon's orbit.
And I have a question here in the chat. It's related a little bit to Syracuse. It says, will people be looking at the eclipse through the telescope in the observatory at SU? And if so, how will onlookers protect their eyes?
So no, we will not be looking through the telescope here. Our telescope is A, very old, and B, it has very specific eyepieces. And the eyepiece that is used to look at the sun, so it's a blackout, was actually scratched a long time ago. So we don't look at the sun because that would focus all of the light onto a very small part of your eye and be very damaging. So out of safety concerns, we will not be.
Thank you.
But we will be out on the quad. We won't be looking through the telescope, but we will, all of us, be out on the quad.
Another question here. Is it true that solar eclipses only occur during a new moon? When you studied the culture and myths surrounding eclipses, was that ever a factor that was counted for in ancient civilizations?
Yeah, so eclipses always occur during a new moon because that is always when that's always the point that the moon is in the location where it's no longer getting light reflected off it from the sun. So it's always going to be during a new moon just because it's where the position is. I think that's mainly how people were able to figure out. They were able to do cycles of the moon to kind of figure out when it would be possible for the sun to be blocked by the moon. And so I'm not entirely sure how they went about calculating it. There's not a whole lot of information on that, but it would definitely be related to the cycles of the moon.
That's great. This is more of an equipment question. You know, folks have a filter that's set up for a smartphone camera, I guess in this particular event. Is there anything that can be used for binoculars or anything that's more long distance viewing?
So yes, like Julia mentioned, there are blackout lenses for telescopes that you can have. Similar to how these glasses black out all the light, it does the exact same thing. So that makes it safe. As for like binoculars or other things like that, you really just need this filter that's on these glasses. So I'm sure you can find places that sell them online, just the filter, so not attached to these little glasses. But just again, make sure that it fits the rating, the ISO rating that are mentioned in the slides, because otherwise too much light could get through and you could damage your eyes or damage the camera that you're using.
I'll say too that this is Professor Whittington off camera. You have to be careful, I think, because of the magnification of telescopes and binoculars. I think you need a stronger filter still than these glasses filters that you wear on your face. And part of the reason for that is protect your eyes. The other reason is you're concentrating a lot of light into the lens system in these devices, and that can start to melt the plastic and damage the binoculars or the telescope.
Got it. And then I guess this was related as well regarding the damage. I mean, what is the technical reason as to why an eclipse can harm your eyes?
So as per like any normal day, staring up at the sun can completely damage your eyes. It'll burn a hole into your like eye and you can possibly go blind. On days of an eclipse, it gets a lot darker due to the moon covering the sun. So a lot of people think like, oh, it's not as bright, I can just look up at it, which is completely wrong. You can look up at the eclipse once it's at totality. So for example, if you're in Syracuse at 3:23 p.m., you can look straight up at it, but that is the only time. And even then, I would say be careful and make sure that it is definitely at totality.
Okay. And I'm not sure if you guys are going to be able to do this. I know Syracuse is very special in the fact that we're going to be able to view totality, but one of the questions is related to see if there's a detailed map of the area of totality that goes through the Syracuse area. I mean, is there a specific area there? And then maybe just as a follow-up for our New York City folks, what about what time like approximately will be visible in New York City?
I'm just trying to go back on the slides right now to the map.
Your map?
Yeah, my map. So as for a map of Syracuse, the entire city of Syracuse is going to be within this path of totality. Go one more. Yeah, so here you can kind of see different times. So like New York City, for example, is not on the path of totality. However, can I have the mouse? As you can see in this image right here, it is within like the 90 range. So you'll still be able to see the eclipse at 90% totality. And the time is going to be similar because of the way that it goes across. It's going to be around 3:30 p.m. But yeah, I'll leave this map up in case anyone wants to take a picture, look at it closer so you can see your own location, how you'll be able to see the eclipse.
That's great. And this is maybe a question related to viewing. You know, when we're looking up and spectating the actual eclipse as it approaches totality, there are things like shadow and changes that are happening during eclipse. Is this even true when you're not in the path of totality? Do you see this transition that happens, like you showed on the presentation?
So yeah, you will be able to see that transition. It will just like, if the sun is here, it's just going to pass like slightly under or something like that. So when it is at totality for other places, you'll still be able to see sun over the top or on one of the sides.
I actually saw a partial eclipse back in, I think it was 2018. And so it's obviously there's still a lot of sunlight, but it does get noticeably darker, even if it's not completely total eclipse.
Got it. Okay. And this gets back to viewing again, I think more on the Syracuse side. So we're looking at the timing where it's safer to look up in the sky. People are asking to see if there's an ability to take a brief look through the observatory at the time of wherever the safety time is outside the totality.
So we will be having tours of Holden. It would probably be, we will have glasses. So if we are able to have the observatory open at that point, you would definitely be able to look, but that would just depend on who is here that day and if we are able to get the sun in the right spot or the dome in the right spot.
Okay. And maybe this is a two-part question related to, again, filming. I think everyone's really interested in taking pictures and being able to view this, but to the extent that folks have solar filters on their camera, does it need it, or solar filters for their telescope, is that needed during totality or just before or after?
Just before or after, yes, but during totality, you can look up at it, you can take pictures, things like that.
Trying to look at the rest. Sorry, there's a lot coming through this chat, so I'm trying to clear all of that. And this is more logistics on campus. What education programs are there, and times and locations are tickets needed to view the event at Syracuse?
I think it's from 2 to 4. Is that right? Or is it 1 to 4?
It's 2 to 4.
2 to 4. And it'll be on the quad, so I don't think you need any tickets for anything.
You don't. And I believe there'll be people running demos as well. There's not too many specifics right now, but there will be different events going on other than just the eclipse. We'll be doing more educational presentations, things like that.
And there will be other events around Syracuse as well, and pretty much anywhere along the path of totality, you'll be able to find different events, different locations.
And if you come to the quad, we'll be distributing glasses, so you don't have to bring your own.
That's great. And this is more an observation for someone to actually experience a total eclipse in 17. They mentioned, and I guess this would be an interesting answer from you guys. Not only does it get dark, but there was a significant temperature. This person experienced a significant temperature drop during that period, even if it was in August. Is that something that we would expect as well, given the event that's coming up in a couple of weeks?
Yeah, definitely. So a lot of the warmth comes from the sun, and so when the light from the sun, when the light is blocked, we lose a lot of the temperature also. So I personally haven't experienced a solar eclipse, but that is definitely something that we would expect to see.
Great. Okay. And then I'm not really sure there's any additional questions. I think cover most things. I think some folks have asked for additional requirements related to the glasses and for viewing. I believe, Liz, we have some of that information that maybe we can drop in the chat at some point.
Yeah, so the specifics for the glasses, and I'll just put this back up so you guys can look at it. Oh, sorry, it's after. This is the ISO rating right here, ISO 12312-2. So just make sure that those is what your glasses fit. As Denver said, it's not confirmed that you should double check if you have a phone to make sure that the rating is safe for your phone. But as for just safety glasses, these are good.
Right. Yes. I want to see if there's any additional questions that come through. You guys have been really great. It's like rapid fire today, so appreciate you answering them so quickly. Oh, a new question just came up. Will we be able to see solar eruptions?
So that's related to the solar prominences. So possibly, it depends on the timing and how sensitive your equipment is. You'll definitely be able to see at least the corona and maybe the chromosphere. In terms of prominences like the loops of plasma or eruptions, there's potential for it, but I wouldn't necessarily count on 100% being able to see something like that. If you have a telescope or binoculars with a specialized lens, you would have a greater chance because you get a more detailed view of what's going on.
Also comment that there's going to be several live streams going on the internet as well with telescope views of the eclipse where you might be able to see these details as well.
Other details to look out for, because of the light being blocked, some of the planets also near the sun will be visible because they'll still be catching the light. And so I'd look up for a planet like Venus that might be lurking out there.
We'll be able to see Jupiter above and to the left of the eclipsed sun. We'll be able to see Saturn down and to the right, close to the horizon. You might be able to see Mars between Saturn and the sun, the moon, both. And Venus somewhere along that, I think to the lower right as well. If you have really good eyes or you know exactly where to look, you might be able to see Mercury. And of course, you can see Earth by looking straight down.
That's great, thanks.
Interested, there's also an app called Night Sky that will let you point your phone, and you can kind of use that to at least get a ballpark for where those planets are during the day.
That's great. One request was to see if we could put back the slide that showed the time map. I think there was one that you could see actually when it was rotating through. Right here, yeah. And to the extent you guys have it handy, what was the website URL again? And I guess, and again, Liz, maybe perhaps just for the interest of all the audience, we could drop this into the chat.
Oh, the website for what?
I think it was just a question of what was the website URL? I think that maybe is more related to, I'm thinking the events that are coming up. I didn't know if there was any, there wasn't really.
Dropped a link earlier in the chat.
Okay. There's another question that's come in. Can we confirm one more time if I can safely take off their solar filter off the telescope during totality?
So yes, you can view during totality, as long as you're in this path of totality and it's definitely at the time when the sun is completely blocked, it's safe.
And make sure that you have a way to put it back on if you want to watch the end of the eclipse. Don't get caught looking through the telescope when it's no longer in totality.
Got it. One of the questions was, again, to reiterate the time from the very beginning to the end of the eclipse at SU. I recall that being 4 minutes. I don't know if that's correct, but the question is the beginning to the end of the eclipse at SU.
It's going to be slightly shorter. I believe it was around 3 minutes. Yeah, 3 minutes and like 20 something seconds. So it's slightly shorter than 4 minutes. And it's going to be at 3:23 p.m. in Syracuse.
And that's for totality. The actual eclipse will take much longer.
Okay, great.
And Jada, you used Stellarium for the
Yeah.
simulation of the eclipse from the ground. I just posted a link to the online version of that software for viewing the night sky or day sky.
Which is completely free to use.
Great. And then this question has come up in terms of the weather. What will happen if it's cloudy? Will there be visibility here?
If it's cloudy, we're all going to be sad. Unfortunately, if there are clouds covering the sun, you won't be able to see the eclipse as well. It'll still darken. It still won't be like a normal day, but The good thing about it lasting almost 4 minutes is that hopefully if there are clouds that day, they will shift around and we'll be able to see the eclipse or the totality for some amount of time.
Great. Can we please confirm? Oh. Okay, I think this question again. Can we please confirm one more time if we could safely take the solar filter off the telescope during totality? I think we answered that question, but was the answer yes during totality?
Yes, during totality only.
Got it. And then a lot of logistical questions. Any idea where to buy lens protectors for iPhones and telescopes?
I would Amazon. I would just check online.
Yep. Okay, great.
Glasses you can get in person.
We're getting pretty close to the eclipse, and so shipping is going to be a challenge for some of these things from some sites, and stock is going to start to drop pretty soon too.
Got it. We're slowing down with the questions. Was there anything else that you guys wanted to highlight? I mean, obviously this is a very special event. It's not going to happen for a very long time, especially in the Syracuse area. Outside of what you presented, there are unique things that we should be looking for as it relates to this particular event leading in.
I think just as a whole, the fact that we're on the path of totality is like the very special thing for us. I think for all three of us, this is our first total solar eclipse. And for most of the physics department here at Syracuse. So just definitely if you're in the area, you should come by. It's going to be a very fun day. There's going to be a lot of very excited scientists on the quad.
Temper your expectations a bit in this area. We have historically about 65% chance of cloud cover. But again, with the cooling effect, that's going to change the weather locally a little bit as the shadow crosses along the path of totality. So the weather might change a little bit, and it is possible that could drive some of the clouds away with winds. But regardless, temper your expectations. Look forward to some of the other events that are happening where you are. And some of the other fun activities to do. And it'll just be a strange experience with the sky darkening essentially all the way to nighttime in the middle of the day. Birds are gonna freak out a little bit. Some of the wildlife might not know what's going on. It'll just be a really interesting experience, regardless of what the weather ends up doing.
Yeah, I know. Well, you hit an interesting point. We didn't talk much about the nature component to it. Is there any bizarre things that happened during that period? Even though it's a very short period of time, but does nature or animals are they out of sorts given that period of time because of this phenomenon?
Well, I mean, you can imagine like we're scheduling entire events around this. This is hitting them out of the blue. So like Denver said, like birds will be freaking out. I'm sure dogs will be barking. Like it's very out of their normal routine and their circadian rhythm. So it'll definitely throw them off.
I think you also really notice it with bugs too. If you're anywhere like that, like here it's a little too cold right now to like have a lot of insects, but anywhere that would right now, we'll probably also see some weird things with that.
Right. Maybe this is for you guys. Will there be classes during this period of time, or will everyone be out and about trying to see what's going on in the sky?
So there are classes still happening on Monday. However, most of the physics department will not be attending those classes. A lot of professors are letting students, specifically in the physics department and other science departments, are letting students not be in class during totality, especially. But yeah, classes are still running that day. I do know that a lot of high schools in the area are closing early, mainly as a safety concern, so the students don't start staring up at the sun without glasses on. But yeah, I do believe that some schools are shutting down, but the university is not.
My children's school district has shifted their school closure around so that they're closed all day on the 8th. Totality will be occurring right at dismissal when kids are getting on the bus, getting off the bus, and they don't, they're worried about liability for that. Plus, I think a lot of people like myself would just be bringing the kids out of school for this event anyway. And for classes, yes, I have canceled my class for that day and told them explicitly they should go outside and view the eclipse.
Yeah. Great. This is a logistical question. One of the participants is in Altamar. Any differences in seeing at Syracuse from that distance? I apologize, I'm not as familiar with Altamar is. But.
Let me just double check. So this map, again, you can see Baltimore, somebody please help me, is
Apparently.
around 80, it's going to be around like 87% totality. So a lot of the phases of the eclipse are going to look the same. You're still going to be able to see the moon start covering the sun. However, you're not going to get that moment where the sun is completely covered and you can only see the corona. But it will still be an event to view anywhere, and it will still get significantly darker where you are.
Well, I think this person asked about Alkmaar, New York, which
Oh,
is
sorry, we said
upstate a
Baltimore.
little bit. Yeah, and I just looked on Google Maps, I didn't know where it was. Alkmaar is straight north of Syracuse, and yeah, it should be nice in the path of totality. Watertown is expecting to get a lot of visitors on that day. Be aware if you are traveling to view the eclipse, traffic might become a problem before the eclipse and especially after the eclipse.
Yeah, and if you are on the path of totality, I would just Google like time of totality with your city name. So if you are a little bit north of Syracuse, the time will differ very slightly.
I'm a little sad. I'm in Chicago. It doesn't look like we're even close to that, but hopefully we'll catch a little bit of a glimpse of a piece of it. But well, Jada, Nico, Julia, Professor Whittington, thank you so much for joining us today. This was a fantastic conversation. So happy we had a chance to learn from you guys today. Thank you everyone for dialing in and joining us also. Stay tuned for additional invitations and future presentations. We hope to see you again. Without further ado, maybe I'm going to ask Liz now to close out the Zoom meeting, and hopefully everyone have a great rest of your day.